You know, this episode is called The Lost Commanders, but I think a more appropriate title is The Lost Missions. I mean, wow. I mean, they just teased like so many Clone Wars episodes that they had planned, but they didn't get to see. I mean, so yeah, as I said before, this is The Lost Commanders. This is the season premiere of Clone Wars Season 2. Well, technically it's the first episode, but I mean the Siege of Lothal Earth's movie, and basically the rebels need to find a base, a place to sort of regroup, gather their forces before they can take on the offensive and fight the Empire. And Ahsoka says she knows someone who has pretty familiar with the Outer Rim and might know a place where they can set up a base. And she says, I've reached out to him. He hasn't responded to any of my texts. I mean, that's basically the Star Wars, the translated version, what she said. And Kanan and the Ghost crew basically volunteer to go find Rex. Not Rex. Find this mysterious commander. And they easily find him, which makes me wonder why. Seriously, I mean, okay, I mean, I know Ahsoka has a lot to attend to, but she seriously couldn't take like a few minutes to just check in. Like, anyone could have done this. But anyway, they go to these coordinates and they find out that this friend Ahsoka was talking about is in fact Rex. And they ask, we know you guys aren't in the game anymore, but could you just give us some coordinates we can go check out? And Rex is like, sure, but in true child cartoon fashion, it said, I'm not going to do this for you. Well, actually, it's more like the Humongous Games, where it's like, okay, I'll do this thing for you, I'll give you this item, but you need to do this side quest first. And it involves a fishing mini game. And so they're fishing, they catch a big one, but then it turns out that one of the clones actually reported the rebels to the Empire. And that's where the episode ends. So, I'm going to say this right now. Clone Wars is not Avatar The Last Airbender. It is not Gravity Falls. It is not even Clone Wars. And a lot of that is why I was really upset with Season 1, because I have seen better. But with all that said and done, I feel like this episode was okay. I mean, it wasn't... I don't think it was a brilliant episode. I thought it was like a little cute, slow episode, which... I mean, it's the beginning of the season. Like, you might start slow, get somewhere big, but... I felt especially what made it good... Not good, but what made it work is the fact that you had Matt Mitchevich writing, which... I feel like you really want Matt writing this episode for reasons I'm getting into a bit. But I think the fact that, for once, I think Clone Wars had a really good Clone Wars, sorry, I can't take something against you. The fact that Rebels had a good writer, I think, is part of the reason why this episode worked. And I hope Matt wrote more episodes, because if it does, it's going to give me a lot more faith in the season. I mean, nothing against Henry Gilroy. It's just the arcs he wrote for Clone Wars tended to be the ones I remembered or cared about the least. Like when I think of Season 4, I really never thought of the slavery arc he wrote. Anyway, back to the episode. So, I think it's effective as far as just giving us a sense of where we're going. I mean, along with Vader hunting them down, this inevitable confrontation Ahsoka's going to have with Vader, and these Inquisitors who are hunting the rebels down. We also have the rebels looking for a base, and I'm guessing that's going to be what the main focus is. We're going to be planet hopping, going to all these planets, looking for all these bases. Which is good. And first off, the fleet we see in the beginning of this episode, is that the entire Rebel fleet? Is this all they have? Wow, I was kind of curious how we go in like a few years from like what we see now to the rebellion we know in A New Hope. Man. So anyway, what I think made this episode work is that for once, Rebels had interesting characters. And one of my biggest faults I've had about Rebels, especially in Season 1, is I always felt like they thought about what the characters were, but they never thought about who the characters were, in the sense that, okay, we have our Jedi character, our kid who's there to be hip and cool, and our teenage punk spunk girls that would be hip and cool, our strong female character, our comic relief, our muscle. But they didn't have any personality. And while some of the characters in Rebels are still just, oh, it's these characters, like, Filoni seems to be living up to his promise of fleshing the characters out, and this episode was very much about fleshing out Kanan, and I think but Kanan and the clones, I feel like, are what made the core of this episode and why I think it works, which is that for once we're not just running around doing stuff, we're actually slowing down and letting the characters breathe, and even down to the point that we're doing a 2-part episode. It's like, okay, we're going to take our time to flesh out the characters, which I'm going to assume is due to the fact that they have a bit of a longer season, which I think is partially due to the fact that they had a bit more time to get Season 2 together than Season 1, because Season 1 just felt so thrown together. And so first off, I was a little skeptical about them bringing Rex and Ahsoka back, because I thought they're just going to be like Star Wars, where every week we're going to have some guest star and we're going to be pointlessly shoehorning in a character. And thankfully they didn't. Thankfully, they found a legit reason to bring the characters in. And even then, it's more about furthering the original characters than showing off the new characters. It's more about using the clones to flesh out Kanan and who he is as a person and help give him some sort of arc so we can connect and relate to him more. But more importantly, it uses the intelligence of Legend of Korra and decides, okay, we're going to not have the returning characters be like the focus. They're going to take on a supporting role. And I like that. It seems like, I very much seem like we're going to get I feel like the clones are going, hopefully the clones take a backseat. So anyway. This episode I thought it did a really good job at sort of bringing out more of Kanan and who he is and how he was scarred by the war. More importantly, just how all these different characters sort of have their own unique version of the war. I mean, we have Kanan who, in some ways Rex and Kanan are very similar in that they both are, Clone Wars is a time that they sort of just want to move on from. Kanan's somewhat scarred because he saw his commander gunned down. Whereas Hera, it's interesting how everyone sort of looks at the clones in a different way. Kanan sees them as monsters. Hera sort of respects them because they saved her home planet. Ezra really doesn't know what to think because he doesn't know anything about the Clone Wars. So it's interesting. And also, I just lost my train of thought. But again, I like how Kanan for once has a personality. We've never seen Kanan get angry and cold, and doing so, I think, sort of fleshes him out. And there's even that point where Kanan and Hera talk. I like how this show is having Kanan and Hera talk a lot, because, it's a relationship we didn't really get that much of in the first season, and, considering Kanan and Hera are the ones who started this group, they met each other, and if you read A New Dawn, it explains, although I wouldn't recommend it. It's not that good of a novel. But anyway, if you're curious, Kanan and Hera do meet you learn how the two met. So I'm always surprised that considering those two were the first two to start this group, that we never really saw much of them. So it's nice to see them and have Hera sort of be this voice of reason for Kanan. And I also like how the way the clones are treated. They very much treated the clones with much respect. And I feel like this is where Matt came in. You need, along with D. Bradley Baker voicing the clones, who did a really nice job fleshing each of them out. You need someone who's written for the clones before, who understands these characters. And I think Matt, not only just being one of the best writers for the Clone Wars, heck, he wrote... He helped write this baby right here, which... So, read this. If you're a Clone Wars fan, read this. It's amazing. I'm loving it so far. But not only one of the head most talented artists, but someone who's really written a lot of really good clone episodes. And it clearly shows. I mean... They were each given unique personality. I think they were given more personality. I might have just been more soft just because the clones are characters I have a lot of connection with from Clone Wars, whereas I don't really connect with the original characters on Rebels much. But one thing I did notice is that each one had a very unique personality. They were all clones, but they each felt different. And I find that so ironic because the crew of the Ghost is very diverse, yet I don't feel like each of them has a very unique personality, but the clones do, and I think that... So, kudos to Matt for keeping up. And again, I'm gonna assume that Filoni's gonna follow through with his promise, and that with each episode we're gonna flesh out the characters, so hopefully Sabine will get fleshed out, because I do not care about Sabine at this point. And Zeb's just cheap comic relief at this point. But anyway, so Rex was basically Rex from the Clone Wars. He's this strong, kind-hearted general. He sort of, willing to help out an old friend. And it's kind of clear that he doesn't want to get on the Empire's bad side. It's very clear that he's not too big on what he fought for. And again, this is why I kind of wish Clone Wars was canceled, because I'm really curious, because all the clones removed their chips, and I'm really curious what happened that caused them to remove it, because they removed their chips before Order 66, so I'm wondering what happened to cause Rex and the others to sort of come around to fives and realize we should probably remove these chips. Again, hopefully we'll get that arc someday. Because if you don't know, Filoni, for the series finale of Clone Wars, we're going to see Order 60. We're going to see the events of Revenge of the Sith from the clones' perspectives. So, yeah. But yeah, the other characters were good. We had Wolf, who sort of, didn't want to get on the Empire, who's sort of grumpy, doesn't want to get on the Empire's bad side. And then Gregor, who... Yay, Gregor's alive! But he's also kind of crazy from the thing. But I think it works, because then you have the lighthearted one. You have, Gregor's lighthearted, Wolf's serious, and Rex is somewhere in the middle. And we also have these conflicting ideologies about what the Clone Wars was, what does it make us now, and it's just really interesting to see where the clones are at right now. And it's just also interesting just seeing them retire. I mean, the concept of them relaxing, chilling, it's kind of cool. In fact, I kind of just wish we would do an entire series just following these clones, because I love the clones. Yeah, again, but it is just interesting to see what they think of the Empire. I love the design of the Adatheron. I love how it's just a hybrid of all this Clone Wars junk, from the backpack Ahsoka used from the films, the sticks the Managars used. I also liked how the armor felt a bit more detailed in texture. There was a lot of paint on it. There was dust. It felt a bit more detailed than a lot of stuff on Rebels. A lot of it just seems very streamlined and simplified, smoothed out, which they even acknowledge in the trivia that they did that for the not the probe droid, the tactical droid. So it's nice to know that they did there was a bit more detail here, because I'm not a huge fan of the Clone Rebels animation. I kind of prefer the detailed Clone Wars. I feel like it's much more dynamic line, but I'm starting to get used to the Rebels animation. So overall, it was a cute, charming episode. I really hope that Kanan doesn't do a full 180 by the end. This is love of the clones. because it would just feel unrealistic. Like, it would work if Kanan just learns to say, you guys are alright, or I shouldn't get mad at one clone, but I don't expect him to do a full 180. That would just be a little too big and rush. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have many complaints about this, because, again, Matt's a good writer. He knows how to write good saucers. I mean, maybe it was just a little too cutesy. Some of the dialogue felt a little corny and cliche, which, I mean, that's always been a problem with Rebels, and there's certain lines on Rebels that I just hear and I'm like, it reminds me I'm watching a children's show. The animation still not on par with Clone Wars animation, and I mean, outside of Kanan, and the clones, I really didn't care for much of the other characters. They felt very much there. It was like looking at a lamppost. It's like, it's pretty, but there's no real depth to it. I mean, which again, I hope by the end of the season, I hope it's like the Normandy crew where I really care about everyone. I'm invested in what happens to them, because right now I do not care about anyone on this show, though. Again, but with the exception of Kanan, who they finally took advantage of his backstory, like fleshed out his character, because Kanan I always think is the most interesting character. So yeah. And another thing that just worries me going forward is, like, I really hope that the show doesn't keep relying on classic Star Wars characters from the movies or the Clone Wars to sell the episode and make it good. Because, like, I liked the Siege of Lothal, and I thought this was okay, but, again, like, was it because it was good writing, or was it because there was a character there I had attachment to that wasn't originally from Rebels? Yeah. Only other thing I have to say is I'm really curious of what the Siege of Mandalore was, because if you don't know Filoni, right around the time the Lost Missions came out, Filoni released like a bunch of sketches for like Clone Wars episodes that they had planned to do but they never got to do. And one which showed a picture of Ahsoka standing next to Bo-Katan, and then there was one of her addressing the council, and it makes you wonder, like, did the Republic go back and liberate Mandalore, and was Ahsoka with them? Was Ahsoka on good terms? I'm like, I'm really curious. And again, I'm also just curious about what went down in Order 66. Also, new intro music, yay. So, again, cute, charming episode. A little slow, but I mean, I'd rather have it start out slow and then get good than start out really awesome than just drag. So yeah, two-parter. Hopefully it picks up a bit in the second half. So yeah, I mean, congratulations, Clone Wars. You're 2 episodes in, and I do not Clone Wars. Congratulations, Rebels. You were 2 episodes in, and I don't totally hate you. So keep it up. So what about you guys, Lost Commanders? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Comment below and let me know. And as always, like, dislike, comment, subscribe, and this is JStar60. Until next time, may the Force be with you.